We've got some exciting news to talk about today surrounding Larian Studios, the developers of Baldur's Gate 3. With them already working on not one, but two RPG projects, there is a lot of hype and speculation surrounding what these games could be. What if I told you that I think one of these games is actually going to be a first-person based RPG, similar to things like Cyberpunk 2077, or, like Skyrim or Fallout.
All of this just works.
But obviously with the polish and quality of Baldur's Gate 3. And I know what you're thinking, right? Larian Studios making an FPS? The studio that's known for making top-down turn-based RPGs? That's crazy, right? Well, I don't think so. And in this video, I'm going to be making the case as to why I think that, and you guys can, decide for yourselves. And real quick before we begin, if you guys are excited about the future of Larian Studios and you want to stay updated with all the latest rumors and news, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join our growing community today. So I'm sure by now all of you guys know who Larian Studios are. They are the studio behind Baldur's Gate 3, which is probably the best RPG made to this day. And of course, they have a history of making just really good top-down turn-based RPGs where you can pretty much do whatever you want, and there's really no wrong way to get through a problem.
Prepare an arm. The steel watch. Next, we identify all enemies.
Nice.
And Baldur's Gate 3 is really just a testament to that kind of mentality. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I have seen tons of videos on YouTube or TikTok where there's just people doing these incredibly outside of the box ways of dealing with, issues or just enemies in that game. It just, the creativity that the players have, and then also just the fact that the developers created a game where people can do all this crazy stuff is just unreal. And of course, you cannot ignore just the sheer quality and the amount of polish that Baldur's Gate 3 has. When I look at Larian Studios, for me, it kind of gives me this reminiscent feeling of what Blizzard was back in the day. 10 years ago, Blizzard was known for just making incredibly good games, and their games were just incredibly polished. But, nowadays you really can't say that about Blizzard anymore. And with the critical success of Baldur's Gate 3 under Larian Studios' belt, they now have room to pretty much do and say whatever they want. And they're definitely doing that now and just making their ambitions known, because it looks like they have just opened up a brand new studio in Warsaw, Poland. And what's really interesting about this location is that Warsaw, Poland is actually the location of where CD Projekt Red is, the developers behind the Witcher series and Cyberpunk 2077. And I don't think the location of this new studio being so close to CD Projekt Red is a mistake, but that's something that we'll get to a little bit later. But as it stands right now, we know that Larian Studios is no longer making any Dungeons & Dragons or Baldur's Gate 3 focused games. They're moving on to other things. And of course, Larian Studios' CEO Sven Vinke has mentioned in various interviews that the company is looking to innovate and explore new tones, styles, and approaches to their upcoming projects. One thing that I thought is really interesting is that in a recent interview, Sven has mentioned that they want to make a game that basically dwarfs Baldur's Gate 3 in size and quality. And it's also worth mentioning that the next game that they come out with is not going to be that game, but just a step in that direction. So it's pretty clear that Larian Studios is hungry to just keep pushing that envelope and make bigger and better games. And as I sit here and I'm thinking about what is the next step for Larian Studios, what is that next kind of bigger, better thing from a game like Baldur's Gate 3? And the first thing that pops into my head is a first-person or first-person/third-person style RPG. One of the most common negative things that I heard about Baldur's Gate 3 from a lot of people, granted there were not many because the game was awesome, is just the approachability of the game, right? A lot of people don't really like that top-down RPG type of playstyle. And just the fact that so many people that were not really into that type of gameplay decided to give that game a try and play it just kind of speaks to how good Baldur's Gate 3 was. But in my opinion, if this game was more of a first-person style action kind of RPG, it probably would have sold way more copies. And I think Larian Studios knows this. And just take a moment and think about that for a second. Could you guys imagine if Baldur's Gate 3 was a first-person style game where, you know, you could run through the streets of Baldur's Gate and, you know, just take in the scenery and all that stuff, that would be amazing. And I also think it's kind of crazy because if Larian Studios decided to go into making first-person style RPGs, I think Bethesda would be in a really bad spot. Because you take a look at games like Starfield, it's just like, people are hungry for these first-person immersive RPG kind of experiences. And, you know, Bethesda used to be that company, but I don't know, just recently their games have just not been living up to the hype and what people expect from them. So I think there is a very high demand for those types of games, and that is a massive potential untapped market of players that Larian Studios could definitely reach to. Now, going back to the location of their new studio in Warsaw, Poland. I'm sure there are a number of reasons why they decided to put this new studio there, but I think one of the reasons is they have a massive studio of potential employees that they could poach from CD Projekt Red. Granted, I don't think they would actually do that, but the fact that, you know, if you are a CD Projekt Red employee and, you know, maybe you're not getting paid as much, well, you probably have a brand new potential company that you can go and work for. And, you know, a lot of those guys have experience working on Cyberpunk, which is a first-person RPG. So what are the implications of Larian Studios making a more first-person focused RPG instead of the traditional top-down turn-based that they're known for? Well, I think no one will argue that the more first-person focused RPGs often offer a more immersive experience. And with how well known Larian Studios is known for making their games where players can, you know, think outside the box and tackle any kind of problem or scenario with just, you know, stacking barrels or just doing crazy stuff, doing that in a first-person style game, I think would be really awesome and honestly kind of groundbreaking because we really don't see that much in games anymore. I think it would be a really good opportunity for Larian to kind of like flesh out the NPCs or party members in your group and just make those conversations and relationships a lot more meaningful and more impactful too. And at the end of the day, I know whatever Larian Studios decides to make next is going to be amazing, and I just cannot wait to see what the next game is going to be. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know by leaving a like, and also comment down below and tell me what your guys' thoughts are on this. Thanks again for watching, I'm still Solo, and I'll see you all in the next one.